In December 1975, in the peaceful town of Amityville in Long Island, New York, a young family named Mitchell, whose name has been changed based on the Lutz family, decided to buy a beautiful house at a very low price. The house was located at 112 Ocean Avenue. Location name changed based on 112 Ocean Avenue. It was a large, 3-story house, Dutch colonial revival style, overlooking the bay. Robert Mitchell, whose name has been changed based on George Lutz, and his wife, Sarah, whose name has been changed based on Kathy Lutz, along with 3 children from Sarah's previous marriage, were very excited about the new house. For them, this was the American dream coming true. However, they knew about the dark history of this house. Just over a year prior, in November 1974, a horrifying mass murder had occurred here. David Miller, whose name has been changed based on Ronald DeFeo Jr., the eldest son of the DeFeo family, had used a rifle to shoot and kill 6 members of his family while they were asleep in their beds. The real estate company had informed Robert and Sarah about this murder before they bought the house. Sarah, being religious, had asked a priest to bless the house before they moved in. Priest Mark Rourke, whose name has been changed, came to the house to perform the ritual. However, as soon as he stepped inside the house, he felt a sudden cold draft engulf him, and heard a hoarse and terrifying voice echoing from somewhere in the house, ordering him to get out. Priest Rourke felt as if he was being pushed out by some invisible force. He was shocked and scared, and did not complete the ritual. Priest Rourke warned Robert and Sarah about something evil in the house, but they thought he was affected by the story of the murder. They still decided to move in. On the first day of moving in, the atmosphere in the house seemed normal, but Sarah suddenly smelled a strange odor, like cheap perfume or something decaying. The smell appeared and disappeared abruptly. Then, strange noises began to appear. Knocking on doors when no one was there. Footsteps on the stairs when everyone was downstairs. Room doors automatically opening and then slamming shut. The children also began to exhibit strange behaviors. They talked to imaginary friends, especially a little girl named Jody, whose name has been changed based on Jody, described as a female pig with red eyes. Robert and Sarah initially tried to find rational explanations for these phenomena. They thought it was just normal noises of an old house, or that they were being overly sensitive after learning about the house's history. However, these phenomena became more frequent and terrifying. The Mitchell family's American dream was slowly turning into a nightmare. They didn't know they had just moved into a place where the darkness of the past still lingered, and where unfortunate spirits were still trapped. The strange phenomena in the house on Ocean Avenue became more intense and terrifying in the following days. The Mitchell family realized that something evil was in this house, and it had no intention of leaving them alone. The strange smell still appeared and disappeared, but now it was more frequent and unpleasant. Sometimes, it was a very strong smell of cheap perfume, and sometimes it was the smell of rotting meat or sulfur, making everyone nauseous. The noises also became more varied and gruesome. In addition to knocking and footsteps, they also heard scratching on the walls, objects being thrown, faint moans, and terrifying giggling from empty rooms. Doors and windows automatically opened and slammed shut with force, sometimes causing things on the walls to fall. Lights flickered, and the temperature in the house changed abruptly, with strange cold spots despite the heating system being on. Robert and Sarah were utterly terrified. They tried to find explanations, but couldn't. They knew these were not normal phenomena. The evil presence in the house began to affect the family members. Robert became irritable and easily angered. He often felt cold, wore more clothes, and spent a lot of time by the fireplace. His personality seemed to be changing in a frightening way. Sarah was tormented by horrifying nightmares every night. She dreamt of gruesome things, images of the previous murder, or other strange and terrifying things. She woke up in fear, drenched in sweat. The children were also affected. They still talked to Jody, but now, Jody was no longer a fun imaginary friend. They said Jody was scary, that Jody said evil things and threatened them. The youngest daughter, Emily, whose name has been changed, often cried at night and demanded to sleep with her parents. The Mitchell family lived in constant terror. The house, which was supposed to be a safe and happy place, was now their prison. They felt trapped, watched, and tormented by an invisible force. They didn't dare to invite friends over. They felt ashamed and scared to explain what was happening. Time passed, and every day in the house on Ocean Avenue was like a day in hell. 28 days, each day bringing new fears, new strange phenomena, and more terrifying effects on the family members. They realized that this house wasn't just haunted. It contained something evil and powerful. Something that didn't just want to torment them but wanted to destroy them. And they didn't know how much longer they could survive in this house. The evil presence in the house on Ocean Avenue became more direct and terrifying, targeting the Mitchell family members personally. Robert continued to undergo significant personality changes. He became distant, withdrawn, and seemed constantly angry. He was obsessed with the fireplace and constantly burned wood, even when the weather wasn't particularly cold. His eyes looked tired, and sometimes they seemed to have a strange red glint. He said frightening things, sometimes repeating bizarre phrases without understanding why. Sarah was scared to be around her husband. He was no longer the Robert she knew. Sarah was tormented by even more intense nightmares. She dreamt of horrifying things, images of the previous murder, or other strange and terrifying things. She woke up in fear, drenched in sweat. The children were the most affected. They not only talked to Jody, but were also scared of Jody. They described Jody as a terrifying creature, with glowing red eyes and a deformed face. Jody told them evil things, threatened them, and said they were not allowed to leave the house. Emily, the youngest daughter, was particularly obsessed with a small room on the second floor, which was said to have a hole leading to hell. She often spoke about that hole and was scared to walk past the room. One night, as Sarah was checking on her children in their bedroom, She was horrified to see glowing red eyes staring at her from the darkness in the corner of the room. Those eyes looked like the eyes the children described Jody as having. Sarah screamed in horror and turned on the light. Nothing was there, but she knew she had seen correctly. Those red eyes were real. Items in the house began to exhibit their own strange behaviors. Chairs rocked. Pictures fell off walls. Kitchen cabinet doors automatically opened. Objects were thrown off shelves. One time, a mirror on the wall was thrown forcefully to the floor and shattered. The Mitchell family felt as if they were going insane. They couldn't believe what was happening. The house seemed to have a mind of its own. An evil mind that was trying to push them to the brink of madness. Robert and Sarah knew they needed professional help. They contacted paranormal investigators and people who specialized in exorcisms. However, finding help was not easy. Some people didn't believe their story. Others were scared by the level of evil they described. While waiting for help, the Mitchell family had to continue living in that haunted house, facing the increasingly powerful evil presence. Horrifying changes were happening to them, and they didn't know how much longer they could resist. The supernatural phenomena in the house on Ocean Avenue became more horrifying, leaving the Mitchell family in utter fear. They knew they were fighting a very powerful evil force. Robert, despite some personality changes, still tried to understand the house and its history. He believed that the key to understanding and perhaps ending the haunting lay somewhere in this house. He spent a lot of time exploring the house, especially less used areas, like the basement. The basement of the house was pitch black and damp, with a gloomy and unpleasant atmosphere. While exploring the basement, Robert suddenly noticed something strange. In a corner of the basement, hidden behind old wooden boards, there was a small room, built of brick. This room was not on the house plans. Robert felt a strange unease when he saw that room. He felt as if some evil energy was radiating from within. He tried to open the room door, but it was tightly locked. Robert found a way to break down the door to get inside. When the room door burst open, a cold draft and a strong foul odor rushed into Robert's face. The smell was like rotting meat, but much more disgusting. The room inside was pitch black and damp. On the walls, there were strange symbols drawn with a dark red liquid, looking like dried blood. The symbols looked very ancient and terrifying, like the symbols of some evil ritual. In the middle of the room, there was a small hole in the floor, like a shallow well. From that hole, a cold draft and a foul odor rose. Robert shivered deeply. He knew he had found something terrible. This room was not a normal room. It was a place related to evil things. He suddenly remembered his youngest daughter, Emily, talking about a room with a hole leading to hell. Perhaps this was that room. Robert stumbled back, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew this room was connected to the evil presence in the house. Perhaps the previous killer, David Miller, had used this room for some evil purposes. Or perhaps this room itself had attracted or trapped the evil force. As Robert stood there, staring at the dark room full of terrifying symbols, he suddenly heard a faint voice echoing from the hole in the floor. The voice sounded like weak moans, but also full of anger and pain. "They cannot escape," the voice echoed, as if coming from the hole itself. Robert felt his entire body freeze with fear. He knew those were the voices of trapped souls. Perhaps the spirits of the previous Thieu family. The small room in the basement was not just a room. It was a door to somewhere even more terrifying. Robert knew he had found the darkest secret of the house on Ocean Avenue. And that secret was more horrifying than anything he could have imagined. After exploring the secret room in the basement and hearing the voices of trapped souls, Robert Mitchell knew his family was in grave danger. The evil presence in the house was not just simple supernatural phenomena. It was something deeper, something related to death and darkness. He tried to explain to Sarah what he had found. About the room with the terrifying symbols and the voices from the hole in the floor. Sarah was initially very scared. But she believed Robert. They realized that this house was truly cursed. Robert and Sarah decided to seek help from people experienced in this field. They contacted famous paranormal investigators, people who specialized in studying haunted houses. A team of investigators, led by Dr. John Reynolds, whose name has been changed, came to the house on Ocean Avenue. They brought specialized equipment to record supernatural activity. As soon as they entered the house, the investigators felt a difference. The air was colder, heavier, and there was a strange sense of unease. They began setting up equipment in the house, including voice recorders, video cameras, and devices to measure temperature and electromagnetic energy. On the first night, the investigators witnessed strange phenomena. The voice recorders picked up faint whispers of unknown origin. The temperature gauges recorded unusual cold spots moving in the rooms. And the video cameras captured images of small objects moving on their own. However, the evil force in the house seemed unwilling to be exposed. It began to fight back. Lights in the house turned on and off automatically. Loud noises suddenly echoed from empty rooms. Some of the investigators' equipment mysteriously broke down. Dr. Reynolds, despite his experience, felt worried. "There is something very powerful here," he said, his voice low. "Something that doesn't like us being here." As the investigators tried to go down to the basement and explore the secret room, some invisible force tried to stop them. They felt themselves being pushed back, and heard an angry voice echoing from the direction of the stairs leading to the basement. "Get out!" the voice snarled, full of threat. A member of the investigation team was violently hit by an unseen object, causing him to fall to the ground. The investigators realized that the force in the house was very dangerous. It didn't just want to torment, but also wanted to harm those who tried to intervene. They spent a few days in the house, collecting more evidence of supernatural activity. However, they could not find a clear explanation for what was happening, or how to stop it. The darkness on Ocean Avenue seemed unrelenting. The Mitchell family and those trying to help them were facing something beyond human comprehension. The battle with the evil force was ongoing, and the Mitchell family knew they could not survive in this house much longer. The final days of the Mitchell family in the house on Ocean Avenue were the peak of the horror. The torment by the evil force had reached an unbearable level. Robert and Sarah lived in utter fear. They couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Their health and sanity deteriorated severely. The children cried and screamed constantly, afraid of Jody and other terrifying things they saw or sensed. The supernatural phenomena occurred non-stop, relentlessly. Objects were thrown violently. Doors burst open. Voices and gruesome sounds echoed throughout the house. A strong foul odor permeated the air. One night, one of the children was physically attacked in a clear manner. They were violently pushed off the bed, or had scratches appear on their bodies without a clear cause. Robert and Sarah knew they couldn't stay in this house for another minute. Their children's safety was threatened. On the morning of the 28th day since moving in, the Mitchell family made a heartbreaking decision. They would leave the house immediately. Taking nothing with them, they quickly packed essential belongings, only the absolute necessities, and fled the house in a panic. They left behind everything they had bought for their new home, left behind their American dream. As they drove away from Ocean Avenue, Robert and Sarah looked back at the house in the rearview mirror. The house still stood there, looking normal under the morning sun, but they knew that hidden inside was the darkness, the evil that had tormented them. They never returned to that house. They left everything behind, only wanting to escape the nightmare. The story of the Mitchell family and their 28 days living in the house on Ocean Avenue quickly spread. It became the Amityville Horror, one of the most famous ghost stories in the United States. Robert and Sarah's accounts of the supernatural phenomena, of Robert's changes, of Jody the pig with red eyes, of the secret room in the basement, attracted the attention of the media and the public. Many believed their story, while others were skeptical, claiming it was just a story made up for money or attention. However, whatever the truth, the story of the Amityville Horror left an indelible mark on the minds of many. The house at 112 Ocean Avenue became a haunted location, a reminder of the brutal mass murder that occurred there and of things beyond understanding. The Mitchell family escaped the house, but the haunting memory of their 28 days in hell will likely stay with them forever. And the house in Amityville still stands there, holding its darkest secret, a secret that perhaps will never be fully revealed. The story of the Amityville Horror is a chilling warning that there are places where the darkness of the past still lingers, and that we never truly know what lurks within old walls. If you enjoyed these true horror stories, or stories based on alleged true accounts, like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on the channel to follow our latest videos. We will bring you more terrifying and haunting stories. Thank you for listening.